Hello and welcome to How to Deal with Grief and Trauma. My name is Natalie Himmelrich. How to Deal with Grief and Trauma is completely self-funded, produced and edited by me, Natalie Himmelrich. Consider making a small donation to support the podcast. Go to bit.ly/support, capital G, capital T, and podcast. I repeat, bit.ly/supportgt podcast. Thank you so much. And for more information, please visit Natalie's website, join the podcast Instagram page, and subscribe to the newsletter to receive updates on future episodes. Today's episode with Laney Rosenzweig has been one of the conversations that caught me by surprise. After hearing about accelerated resolution therapy from one of my previous podcast guests, I was interested, but after speaking with Laney, I was completely intrigued by her experimental spirit, which led to the potential of ART to help people from many challenges. ART has been proven useful to treat PTSD, grief, depression, phobias, anxiety, addiction, substance abuse, eating disorder, OCD, and ADHD, just to name a few. Go and check out this episode if you want to learn more. About this week's guest, Laney Rosenzweig is the developer of accelerated resolution therapy. Developed in 2008, ART is an evidence-based eye movement therapy that can resolve the symptoms of PTSD and other mental health issues. The research showed that 1 to 5 sessions with an average of 3 resolved the issues studied. Most past traumas can be resolved in only 1 session. Ongoing problems may take longer due to secondary gains. Her training company, Rosenzweig Centre of Rapid Recovery, has trained over 8,000 clinicians both in private practice and numerous clinics. Her book, Too Good to Be True, is an autobiographical account of her life, how she developed ART, and the examples of ART's healing power. I hope you enjoy today's conversation as much as I did having it. So welcome, Laney. So nice to have you here, and thank you for taking the time to be on the How to Deal with Grief and Trauma podcast. How are you today?
I'm doing well, thank you.
So we had a little bit of a conversation just before we went on recording, and just to give a frame of reference of why I invited Laney. Basically, one of the guests that I had in season 3 shared with me that she did ART as a means to treat or to help with her real stress and trauma that she had from her stillbirth. And so I got to understand that ART doesn't just stand for art and creativity, but for your modality that you founded. And we're so grateful to have you, the person that actually founded it or coined it or named it, here with us, who can explain a little bit more. So for the lay person, maybe we start by you telling us a little bit, how did you come into this field? What made you decide to work with people who deal with trauma?
Well, I've been a therapist for 30-something years. I've worked at a clinic and for a psychiatrist and other things. But I was doing employee assistance work and has lots of trauma. I was at a police station where someone had committed suicide. Mm-hmm. And they asked me back in 2007, do you know EMDR? And so I made it my business to find out what that was. And I begged them to have a training. I wanted to learn it. And so back in 2007, I took a course in EMDR. And at that point, I went for supervision, and the person who supervised me from EMDR said, "You're not doing EMDR. I don't know what you're doing, but either go back to doing it our way or call it something else." So I pondered that for a good long time, but my results were so good. I could do trauma often in an hour and be done. And I thought I really need to bring it out into the world, and had other people sort of coax me to say, you need to do this. And so back then, that's when I started to write down what I was doing. And that's how I began. Now, 2 years subsequent to that, that supervisor for EMDR took my training and called me and said, I heard it's quite good. And I said, you're the one who told me it wasn't EMDR. And he said, I hope I was nice to you. And I said, you're great, like you a lot. And she took my training from me at that point.
So ART, I don't know if people have heard it, you say that it stands for Accelerated Resolution Therapy. And so people have already spoken about EMDR on the podcast here, and I've explained that. So what is similar and what is different? So for people to understand, well, what is ART? What does it do?
The ART I liked when I laid names on a table. I picked accelerators very fast. It resolves things. And this is therapy and spelled ART. Well, in the mind, our clients draw. They do different artistic things and creations as they do art. A lot of people come out and say art is fun. We try to make it fun, even with trauma, in the way that it works. It seems easy to do. Clients leave happy at the end. Now, I would like to distinguish past trauma, like something that happened or a whole childhood of trauma, from ongoing things. If someone has substance abuse, eating disorders, OCD, it might take a few more sessions because they may have a secondary gain, which is a reason to hold on. But if it's past, if it's done, if they want to get rid of it, usually for like molestation, rape, that takes me one session. And the way we do it, they never look back. That's the norm for me.
Yeah. So, I mean, people might already say, oh my God, I want to have this. And so just for people who are listening in here, all the links are in the show notes. So if you want to go and find connection with Laney or find a practitioner close by, go and find the links in the show notes. But we're going to talk a little bit more about the benefits of ART. And, you know, you already shared how you came from EMDR and developed ART. So, you know, reflecting back, what is it that you do differently than EMDR?
So I think we're closer aligned to neuro-linguistics programming than EMDR because we care about images more. So EMDR free associates, kind of like a dream, where dreams don't always resolve things. And Francine Shapiro, who I met, she's in my book, Too Good to Be True, because I met her, and I do think she's a great woman for getting eye movements out there. But in the free association, it could take a very, very long time. If you're lucky, it could desensitize you quickly. But we desensitize the client very early on, and then we positize. That's my word. So EMDR, in the way it was written by Francine Shapiro, does not positive and put in better images and so forth. My claim to fame is to be able to erase a negative image that causes a trigger by using eye movements to erase it the way you erase things at night when you sleep during REM. That makes it very different. I don't have to get to know the client well because as soon as they sit down, if they have a headache, I can remove it. I can move sensations very quickly. That's the buy-in the client gets. I don't have to get to know them as EMDR does. Mm-hmm. I've had people tell me, I've had 5 years of EMDR. I go, if you have 5 years of art, I'll teach you 5 different languages because I won't know what to do at the time. It's just very quick. I did write a paper on the difference between EMDR and art, which people can get on the website, which is artworks with the plural now.com. And we're like opposite. She goes one way and I go the other path. She actually says a client may leave in distress. So if they're going away on vacation in 2 weeks, don't start it. Like she says, those sort of things. I want to do it so they'll have a better vacation.
Mm-hmm.
But we're just kind of really different in how it sort of drags out by free association versus doing it right on the issue. I've trained many EMDR therapists in art, and we have 44 trainers around the nation. I had a stroke, so I don't travel anymore, and it did affect my speech. But what I would say is that EMDR just takes a lot longer. We're just quicker, and there's so many differences. Now, most EMDR people don't do it Francine Shapiro's way. I asked them, have you changed it? They've all changed it. Nobody does the 8 phases she has. And so I changed it too in a way that works by combining some of the best modalities like Gestalt, psychodynamic, guided imagery. I combined it with the ability to erase images and make a new story, like a good dream. And that's a big difference in why it's so quick. If you go to the dentist, they take out decay, put in a filling, you're done. That's sort of what we do. We take out the decayed images and replace them, and the person walks out free. They have all the facts, but just not the pictures.
Yeah, that's a good metaphor with the dentist. I mean, people wouldn't want to go back to the dentist every week to do something over and over again. They want to get it done.
Not a prolonged root canal.
No.
Oh.
So let's take a specific example. So the person that was on the show, Catherine, she had a stillbirth. And so someone might have this example of an extreme trauma that comes back in flashbacks, has just PTSD as an example. Not that I say that Catherine had that, but if someone is dealing with those thoughts and images that come again and again, what can they expect will happen that they don't have them? Because I guess some people listening here will say, well, how is that even possible? I've been dealing with my images and my thoughts for the last X months, years, or whatever.
So if grief works the way it should, at the end, you'll be left with good images, better.
Yeah, exactly.
But we do it in a session. So I have my therapist say, how soon should I do grief? I say, it's none of your business. It's up to the client. If the client wants it the next day after a loss, do it. If they'd rather feel the natural grief and the pain because they think they deserve to or whatever, then wait until they're ready. But as soon as they're ready, we can normalize what happened by leaving them with better images that will promote healing. You know, if they walk in on somebody hanging, you erase that image and you replace it with the best thing that they ever had with that person. And that promotes healing because the brain doesn't have anything to match it to. So that if on TV they see someone hanging, it's not going to come up in their brain like an image to match the pain to.
Yeah.
Because they have the facts, they just lose the prefrontal cortex is the same. The amygdala, which is the fear center of the brain, the limbic system, that's where the changes occur. We don't change the rational view of what happened. We just work with the images from the other part of the brain.
I really had this good image. So my mother died from suicide almost 11 and a half years ago now.
Oh,
and
sorry.
So I don't have any images that, and I would say that in retrospect for me, my grief and my trauma has been resolved to the point where I still remember her, I still feel the sadness or sometimes disbelief that she's gone, but I do not have any haunting memories or images in regards to her death. But some people might have, and they might have that ongoing. And I think from hearing you speak, for people to understand, is the memory the fact of the loss and the way the person decided to leave, that's not going to change. But the sting or the pain that is associated to that picture, that's what is changing. Is that correct? Did I understand
Yes,
that?
our motto is keep the knowledge, lose the pain.
Okay, keep the
Because
knowledge, lose the pain. That's good.
that's what we have as a motto, because facts don't hold any emotion at all. It comes from images, I believe anyway, images and, sensations that is what we can move. And so taking out the sensations, the images change. So if you do art and somebody says the rape was my fault, and you do art, they naturally come out and say it was not my fault without me having to prod them to say it. So I'm not in it as much. The client does all the work. The biggest thing people like about art is I don't have to hear details.
Mm-hmm.
So I can do the whole procedure with no details, and kids love that because they'll say, I don't want to talk about it. I say, don't have to.
Exactly. And that's what we know from trauma, working with trauma. It's actually important because we don't want to re-traumatize someone by having to speak about it and relive the whole thing. There's no purpose to that.
There's a therapy called prolonged exposure therapy, and actually the military still uses it. When I was training on the Army bases, I saw the equipment where you sit there and you see, war, which is adding to whatever they already had, And so I was asked at a conference for social workers in Washington, national conference, and I was speaking and somebody raised their hand and they said, what do you think of prolonged exposure therapy? And I just simply said, I think it's prolonged. Exactly. And we're accelerated. Just the title alone is something that where they see it over and over and hope the brain will get tired of seeing it. I only have the client see it one time the way it was.
I heard Peter Levine from Somatic Experience speak about the prolonged exposure therapy, and somatic experience is sort of the contra exposure to not prolonged in a different way than ART, obviously. But yes, it's a pity that some therapies still believe that whatever their modality is working, and not to say that it doesn't, but prolonged exposure therapy in itself sounds like re-traumatization to me.
Yes, but if someone comes to me that's had that, it's ready to be processed. So nothing's a waste. It's right there. It's ready for me to grab and move. So, and then they say, why didn't I find this before? I say, well, you have it now. Kind of like, so when people have nightmares, their brain has already put it in the context of metaphor. So it's ready to be processed. Someone comes to me, they say, I have this recurring nightmare. The night gone. And they won't have that again once they do a session.
So you said you have, or maybe you said that before we started recording, you said you have trainers. I know you said you have trainers across the country. So is that specific to the United States, or are there trainers across the globe in other places as well?
We're about to go to Australia next year because I wanted to protect the IP so it's done the way it should be and people don't improvise, and it's very powerful. So we're ready now because we have the EU protection. And I believe the first step is Australia.
So then it hops over the pond. But Europe, how about Europe?
Well, there are places we'll be able to go and that want it. And it just took us a while to get there, but we do have many trainings going on in the U.S. simultaneously. So I was glad because I don't want to travel having had a stroke. I need to be here. And so people are doing the work to spread it. And we're hoping that Yale wants to work with us. They've expressed a desire, and these other places. So we're in a good place right now.
So it's good to know that even someone who is a therapist or a psychologist listening to this podcast, they know that, again, the links are in the show notes. You can go and train in ART. So how long is that training for someone listening to this?
Basic training to get you up and running for trauma and other things too is only 3 full days. So it's 3 days. Now, the advanced is going to be 3 days. We're combining it, not 4, but 3. And that's for doing more metaphorical work. Metaphors is what the brain likes. We dream in metaphor. So if you have a problem, you may dream of a monster or something, with that. So that's important, that we do the extra metaphorical work. I do lots of interventions added to the basic script that people can use. It's very creative, and that's why people like it.
So from your training or from where you were working before and then you took EMDR, what happened for you, or how did that happen that ART came into life?
So as I sat there through the EMDR training, I was enamored with the eye movements themselves, because I could tell when people did them that it went to the positive. Something about these eye moves was healing. And that's what I took out from there. And then I changed the amount we do, the frequency of doing it. So basically from there on, nothing was the same as the EMDR at that point.
So you basically experimented and then you saw the results.
Well, I did everything by intuition alone, with maybe a higher power helping. Some people take what's already known and create something. I didn't do that. I took the eye movements. Like you said, I did some experimentation. So I used them, and this one person said, I can't see it the way that it was. It's changed. I said, really? That's when I experimented to do the erasing. So everything has an experimental stage to it, where it is now, which is really perfected quite a bit. And it works for everyone who uses the script. You use the script with the client. They're not looking at you anyway. So you talk it through and they get the results and write me and thank me, because they say change their practice. But you see, we do go through people quickly. However, I get tons of referrals. Like one person tells another person, even yesterday, a referral because the sister had it. So it's more people and less sessions. So ongoing could be more like I'm seeing someone today for OCD, and it's her 3rd time.
So that's probably a good question. Like people who are sitting there listening, they wonder, well, is this right for me? So what kind of conditions or traumas or griefs would be something that could benefit from ART?
I think it's more like what can't you do with, but if people don't want it, or they're not sure with the secondary gain, like they want to stop smoking, but they have the craving, I might see them twice the first week. And the second is you want to catch the craving. The endorphins tend to go off for 3 days after a session, which is fine for a past problem. For ongoing, there could be an urge or a craving. I want to catch that right away again and give them tools to deal with that on their own too.
Okay, so that's, for example, for stopping smoking. So you mentioned OCD. Did you mention that just before?
OCD. I did a script for ADHD. I do Inquiring Minds twice a year, and I'm going to share a session of doing it where she wrote after and said she believes it worked because she doesn't have the fidgety feeling anymore.
Oh, I'd be interested in that. My daughter has ADHD, so that would be interesting.
Without drugs.
So for people who are listening to this podcast, so mostly they have experienced some kind of trauma. You already mentioned rape, You already mentioned, or in your TED Talk, you work with someone who's been attacked by a dog. What kind of other traumas that people who might be listening would be?
Very, very surprisingly, when I was training one time, the person couldn't read well. They had dyslexia. My mom was reading cartoon. And also Betty Ford, somebody had dyslexia years and years ago. So I took them during a break and I just used my intuition. And in 15 minutes, I got them to be able to read and understand. So I have video of people who've had trauma with dyslexia all their lives. And we show video of how I do it. There are two people that trained that both had it. So I did a half hour, and then you see them read and understand. Now, I would love a study on that, because who does trauma with dyslexia?
Exactly.
Nobody. And they can't do it in one session. Nobody can. And so I figured it out. And I think my mom might be proud of me up there in heaven, because it's a very unique thing we do that works. So that's a surprising thing. But we do all kinds of trauma. I can do a childhood in a session if you take snippets of the childhood as what you're working on. I often do that. Now, the OCD person who's coming back had 2 sessions, and I'm told she thought about a trauma she had forgotten about. So this session may not even be about OCD. It may be about a trauma. So it can work very quickly with almost everything. Well, the client's brain does the work. I just guide. I'm a very good guide, and my therapists who learn it are very good guides, and they're using my scripts as well. So I tell the client, your brain's doing all the work. I'm just guiding you. So I'm as interested in what happens as you are. Because I had one woman, she said, I'm so anxious. Of course, we get rid of the anxiety before they start. But she said, I'm so anxious. I said, what's that about? She said, I'm worried it will work. I said, well, so am I. And she said, you're kidding me. And I said, well, your brain's doing the work. If you want it, it's going to work well. And we'll see how it goes and let your brain decide what it wants to do.
So that's a good question. So what about clients who, you mentioned it before, who have secondary gain? So for example, me working with people who are grieving, some people have a secondary gain that they have linked pain of loss or pain of grief related to this person being still connected with me. And so they might have the secondary gain of, I actually don't want to have this pain go away. And part of it, because that's my connection to the lost loved one, but another part wants to move forward and integrate the loss.
Right. So, for example, with fear of change, in the advanced training, I have a script I actually wrote for that. So that I call it the fear flip, and people go into the fear, but it's FAIR. And they do their work in the fear with the tense, past, present, future. So using metaphorical scripts in that way works really well, because they don't even know they're working on it. They're just having a good time. And at the end, the brain has shifted, because the brain understands what I'm doing. Mm-hmm. And the limbic system, the part they can't normally reach. So you're doing left-right brain with the eye movements. So the emotional side is connecting to the intellectual side, and they get to speak for the first time doing eye movements. Usually someone's top heavy with intellect and blocking and all that, or they're too emotional and all they do is cry. But here with the eye movements, it gets a balance.
That's fantastic. I'm intrigued already, Laney. I'm intrigued.
Come see me, I'll do a session for you.
Yeah, well, I'm in Zurich, Switzerland, so that's a pond in between.
Well, it'll be worth it.
So what did you do, Laney, with when COVID was here and people were not able to go out? How does this, or does it work with Zoom, for example, like we are talking here?
People do Zoom, but I never do it because I want to see the whole body.
Yeah.
So you may say you're not anxious, but your feet are flopping. I want to see you. I want to be with you. I don't want you to leave the screen. I don't want the screen to go out.
Yeah.
I hate that. I don't want to see just your head. The eye movements are not as smooth, so I can't slow. And so I never do it that way. I had people come with the mask. Now, some people use their hand to move your eyes. I use a balsa wood stick with a index card on top. So I can sit way far back and you still move your eyes. It's fine. Even before the stroke, I did that. So I had a woman who lost her taste. And I was able to bring the taste back. And so I had her bring in some things she wanted to taste the flavor of. And the brain was able to reconnect to that. And so she was pretty happy. She went home, had dinner, and texted me she could taste the whole thing.
Yeah.
So some things get reversed with the use of art, which makes things very normal. So it's not changing you in the abnormal way. You're getting shifted in a way that is the way the brain would have done it if it could have done it. Because when you're traumatized, it skips the prefrontal cortex and goes right to the emotion, and it gets stuck. So we back it out and use the eye movements to, again, reprocess it, which is a word EMDR uses too, to reprocess it so the two parts of the brain can talk and normalize the whole thing. You see, so I look at it as a method to make normal whatever was not normal.
Yeah, or whatever was lost connection. Like in trauma, it's often losing of connection to self and to the outside.
Right.
And, I was thinking that before, for people to understand, because trauma, your past trauma, it has already happened. And the trauma is not what has happened to you in the past, but it's what happens within you. So what the brain is continuously doing as a response to that which has happened in the past. So
and things get worse. Like the woman bit by a dog, the postal worker, that's the first video we show. But in her mind, the dog was more and more ferocious as time went on. And we had to back that out and give her the normal view. And she went back to work, but she felt like going the next day, but they didn't believe her. So they had her wait. But I have a follow-up with her, actually, in her uniform, giving the mail, as she does. So, by the way, I do have an art intro that's free for people who want to see it. So I'll send you that. It's on my web. I do it once a month. Yeah.
Yeah. So the video that Laney was just talking about is part of the TEDx talk, which we're also going to link in the show notes. So you can, for those interested, can have a look at that. So I encourage anyone who's interested to follow the links in the show notes to ART, Accelerated Resolution Therapy, to go and find out. And if you want to try out, there's practitioners all around the States at the moment, maybe soon in Australia, maybe even in Europe.
Yeah.
Who knows? And also, Laney can be contacted, and we'll put that as well in the show notes. And this has been an inspirational conversation. Thank you so much. I'm so glad that you took the time out of your day to share that with us, and for you to express how this has changed not just your world, but the people that have come into contact with you.
And again, the book is called Too Good to Be True. I said that because that's what people say. It can't be, but it is.
Too good to be true. So we're gonna have the book. The book is also in the show notes, the link. So go and check it out. And for people listening to this, if you have any questions, if you have any comments for Laney, write them in the blog post on my website. And I hope to have Laney back. Maybe there's some questions that she will answer. Thank you so much for your time.
You're so welcome. Great.
Thanks for listening to How to Deal with Grief and Trauma. If you'd like to be updated on future episodes, please subscribe to my newsletter on nataliehimmelrich.com. If you need grief support, please contact me for a 30 minutes free discovery session. How to Deal with Grief and Trauma is produced and edited by me, Natalie Himmelrich. To support this podcast, please rate, review, and subscribe to or follow the podcast on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Thank you. And remember to keep reading. I promise it will get easier.